If you are under 50 right now, you have probably heard someone tell you not to count on Social Security being there when you retire. Here is what almost nobody explains. That fear is not paranoia, and it is not entirely true either. The real answer is more specific, more useful, and honestly more unsettling than either the doom version or the everything is fine version you have heard. Let's start with the number everyone throws around without context. The Social Security trustees release a report every year, and the most recent projections say the trust fund reserves are on track to be depleted around 2033. That headline gets clipped into scary video titles constantly. What almost never gets explained in the same breath is what depleted actually means, because it does not mean what most people assume it means. Social Security is not a personal savings account with your name on it sitting in a vault somewhere. It runs primarily on a pay-as-you-go system. The payroll taxes coming out of working Americans' paychecks right now are funding the checks going out to retirees right now. The trust fund is a reserve buffer built up from decades of surplus collections, and that buffer is what is projected to run dry around 2033. Here is the part that changes the entire conversation. Even after that reserve is gone, the system does not shut off. Payroll taxes keep coming in every single paycheck, every single week, for as long as Americans keep working. Current projections show that even with zero reserve buffer, incoming payroll taxes alone would still cover roughly 77 to 80% of scheduled benefits. That means the realistic worst-case scenario, if Congress does absolutely nothing between now and 2033, is not a total collapse. It is an automatic benefit cut of about 20%. That is still a serious problem. A 20% cut to a benefit that millions of retirees depend on as their primary income is not a rounding error. But it is a completely different situation than Social Security disappears, which is the version that spreads fastest online because it generates the most fear and the most clicks. Now, here is why Congress doing nothing is actually the least likely outcome, historically speaking. This exact scenario has happened before. In 1983, Social Security was weeks away from being unable to pay full benefits. Congress passed reforms that raised the retirement age gradually, increased payroll tax rates, and started taxing a portion of benefits for higher earners. It was not painless, and it was not popular, but it worked, and it bought the system decades of solvency. The current shortfall is smaller in relative terms than the one Congress fixed in 1983. That does not guarantee action will happen again, especially in the current political environment, but it means the system has a track record of being patched rather than allowed to fail outright, because letting tens of millions of retirees lose a large chunk of their income is not something either political party wants attached to their name. So what are the actual fixes being discussed right now, in case you are wondering what might happen to you specifically? Raising or eliminating the payroll tax cap is the most commonly proposed fix. Right now, income above roughly $176,000 a year is not taxed for Social Security at all. Eliminating that cap entirely would, according to Congressional Budget Office estimates, close most or all of the long-term funding gap by itself. Other proposals include gradually raising the full retirement age further, adjusting the cost of living formula, or a combination of smaller changes that spread the impact instead of relying on one dramatic fix. None of these are guaranteed. All of them are politically contentious. But the point is that solutions exist, they are on the table, and the system has legal deadlines that force the conversation to happen, because 2033 is not a soft target. It is a hard fiscal cliff that every member of Congress knows is approaching. Now let's talk about what this actually means for you, specifically based on your age, because the honest answer is different depending on where you are in life right now. If you are already retired or within a few years of retirement, you are the least likely group to see any benefit cuts. Historically, when Congress has changed Social Security, they have protected people already receiving benefits or very close to receiving them, and grandfathered in the changes for younger workers instead. This has been true in every major reform so far. If you are in your 40s or 50s, you are in the most uncertain zone. You are old enough that dramatic structural changes to the system are less likely to apply to you, but young enough that if the 2033 depletion date arrives before Congress acts, you could be retiring directly into that automatic benefit reduction window. If you are in your 20s or 30s, here is the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to say directly. You should plan your retirement as if Social Security will exist but will not be enough on its own. Not zero, reduced. Planning around a reduced but real benefit is both more accurate than assuming total collapse and more useful than assuming everything stays exactly as it is now. This is not a reason to panic, and it is also not a reason to ignore it. It is a reason to treat Social Security the way financial planners have quietly treated it for years, as one leg of a retirement plan, not the whole plan. Anyone whose retirement strategy is entirely dependent on Social Security paying full scheduled benefits with no adjustments is building on an assumption that history suggests is unlikely to hold exactly as written. The honest bottom line is this: Social Security is not vanishing. The people telling you it will disappear entirely are wrong, based on the actual mechanics of how the system is funded. But the people telling you not to worry about it at all are also not giving you the full picture. Because a scheduled 20% cut in less than a decade, if Congress fails to act, is a real and specific risk that deserves real and specific planning. So the question is not whether Social Security will exist when you retire. It almost certainly will, in some form. The real question is whether the version of it that exists will be enough, and whether you are building anything alongside it in case it is not.